Title: Don't Ignore This Secret, from Philippians 4:6 that unlocks prosperity. Thumb: Gratitude changes everything. Did you know that gratitude can open spiritual doors to prosperity? This may seem too simple, almost obvious, but what you're about to discover may surprise you. In a world increasingly driven by results, goals, and constant anxiety, there's a silent and forgotten secret capable of transforming not only our emotions, but also our path toward true prosperity. This secret lies hidden in a daily practice that many overlook, yet it's clearly recorded in one of the Bible's most powerful texts, Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. This verse is more than a spiritual recommendation. It is an emotional strategy and a tool for connecting directly with the divine. It teaches us that even before we receive, we must learn to be grateful. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it is a spiritual posture that activates the heavens, calms the soul, and aligns our thoughts with God's will. Have you ever been there? That moment when everything seems out of control and anxiety grips your heart? In those moments, gratitude seems distant, almost impossible, but it's precisely in those moments that it becomes most powerful. When you choose to be grateful, even without seeing the answer, something begins to change within you and around you. It's as if your faith is strengthened, as if a new path opens up. Gratitude is faith in action, and when practiced consistently, it not only changes the spiritual atmosphere but unlocks a deeper level of inner peace. Philippians 4:6 shows us that prayer and thanksgiving go hand in hand. This creates a bridge between our requests and the peace that surpasses all understanding. Yes, thriving begins with gratitude, a key many have yet to turn. Stay with me until the end, because what follows can renew your outlook on life, your challenges, and even your prayers. In this video, we'll explore how to apply this biblical truth in a practical and transformative way. And don't worry if you don't know how to get started yet. We'll walk together. Let's move on now to understand how this emotional and spiritual tool can be applied in your daily life in a simple, profound, and consistent way. It's curious how something as simple as gratitude can be so revolutionary. As we explore this perspective, you may already be remembering situations where gratitude seemed like the last thing possible, but it was also the only thing that brought some kind of relief. When we connect with what we already have, even if it's little in human terms, something begins to blossom within us, and that's prosperity in essence. Not just achieving it, but realizing it, recognizing it, and valuing it. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what's resonated with you so far. Your experience can inspire others going through similar situations. Your participation is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this kind of content that edifies, transforms, and gives meaning to the journey. So, if you're enjoying the reflection so far, please like the video. It really helps spread this message. And of course, if you want to continue following content that blends faith, biblical wisdom, and practical living, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next episodes of this journey, because we're just getting started. What's coming next is even deeper and can completely change the way you view your challenges, your faith, and your way of praying. There's a hidden truth behind Philippians 4:6 that many people haven't yet grasped. Do not be anxious about anything. This phrase carries a quiet power, almost like an invitation to emotional liberation. It's not about ignoring problems, much less pretending everything is fine when it isn't. This verse reveals a powerful spiritual strategy that goes straight to the heart of anxiety, exchanging the weight of worry for the lightness of trust, using gratitude as a tool, and that changes everything. What few realize is that Paul wrote these words in the midst of a challenging journey. He wasn't in a moment of comfort, but rather in a context of adversity. Yet he shares a path that transforms mindsets and rekindles faith. Pray, yes, but with thanksgiving. In other words, give thanks even before the answer arrives. This not only reveals spiritual maturity but activates a kind of peace that transcends circumstances. Have you ever stopped to think about the practical impact of this? Instead of feeding anxiety with assumptions and fears, we are called to present everything before God with humility and gratitude. This shifts the focus from the problem to the presence. And when we shift our focus, we also shift the emotions we harbor. The foundation of this biblical instruction is precisely this: a change in attitude, that brings about inner and over time outer transformation. This passage invites us to make a daily decision. It's not automatic. It doesn't happen magically. It's a conscious choice to trust, even when circumstances scream otherwise. It's in this space between request and response that one of the greatest opportunities to grow in faith lies. And the more we nourish this trust with gratitude, the stronger it grows. Like a seed that, even if invisible for a time, is already in the process of germinating. Philippians 4:6 isn't a ready-made recipe but a clear guide. It shows us how to deal with the internal tension that arises in the face of life's uncertainties. And the most interesting thing is that this verse has a reverse effect on anxiety. It doesn't ignore it but disarms it. When you give thanks even without realizing it, you assume a spiritual position of rest. And this decision has a direct effect on your mind and heart. As Paul himself states later in the text, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard," and here lies the key to understanding that prosperity begins within, before manifesting itself externally. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what follows reveals the role of gratitude as a transformative force that transcends emotions and directly impacts how we live, react, and make decisions. It's at this point that the journey begins to take on revelatory tones, with insights that can open your eyes to paths you might never have considered. Comment below, "This makes sense to me," just so I know this conversation is really touching you. It's impressive how gratitude, despite seeming abstract or purely spiritual, has a direct and measurable impact on our emotions and even our physical health. It doesn't just improve mood. Studies show that people who practice gratitude daily have higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters responsible for feelings of well-being. These same studies reveal a significant reduction in symptoms of stress, anxiety, and even depression. It seems almost miraculous, but it's science confirming what the Bible already taught. Gratitude transforms. Our brains are shaped by thought patterns. When we constantly feed worries, fears, and complaints, we activate areas linked to threat and survival, the famous constant alert mode. But by directing our focus to what we already have, even if it's small, we initiate a process of mental reprogramming that favors more balanced decisions and a more hopeful view of reality. Gratitude, in this context, acts as a lever for inner transformation. The curious thing is that, neurologically speaking, the simple act of writing or verbalizing reasons for gratitude already begins to alter brain connections. It's as if we're gradually replacing the pathways of tension with paths of serenity. This shows that gratitude isn't just an emotional response. It's a choice that, when made consistently, builds a new mindset. And with a new mindset, the decisions we make also change. That's when we begin to see a real impact on our daily lives. Amidst the backstage of life, when everything seems to be falling apart and pressure mounts, being grateful seems counterintuitive. But it is precisely in this arid terrain that gratitude reveals its most genuine power. It is not dependent on circumstances. It is a stance that precedes change, as if to say, "I choose to believe that there is something greater at work, even when my eyes cannot see it." And this choice sustains, guides, and strengthens. Recent revelations in positive psychology reinforce this concept. Research from the University of California shows that grateful people sleep better, relate with more empathy, and develop greater emotional resilience in the face of adversity. In other words, gratitude is also a life strategy. It enhances internal resources that may be underutilized by a mind conditioned to focus only on what's missing. As this understanding becomes clearer, something shifts within us. It's not just about feeling, it's about deciding to see differently. And by deciding to see differently, everything else begins to take on a new shape. We begin to identify beauty in chaos, opportunity in crisis, peace in the midst of the storm. This isn't denying reality, it's reinterpreting it in the light of faith, awareness, and hope. All of this connects with Philippians 4:6 even more profoundly, revealing that gratitude is truly an emotional and spiritual tool intertwined with the divine purpose of thriving. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is at this point that gratitude stops being just a pretty idea and begins to become a concrete force capable of shaping the way we live, react, and relate to everything around us. Right there, I'm on this journey too, just so I know you're walking with me in this conversation. When gratitude is experienced as worship, it becomes something much greater than a polite gesture or an emotional reflex. It becomes a form of active faith, a courageous declaration that we trust, even without seeing it. Instead of waiting for everything to be perfect to give thanks, it's as if we say, I believe God is already working, even if He hasn't yet manifested Himself. And this kind of gratitude not only touches God's heart, but also moves circumstances that seemed stagnant. One of the most striking examples of this truth occurs when Jesus stands before a hungry crowd. He has only a few loaves and fish, but before any multiplication, He raises His eyes to heaven and gives thanks. Think about it. The miracle hadn't yet happened, but gratitude had already been unleashed. This reveals a completely different spiritual mindset than we're used to. Gratitude not as a reaction, but as an invitation for the supernatural to enter the scene. Behind the scenes of faith, this attitude is like a key that unlocks invisible doors. Giving thanks before victory is a sign of trust in divine goodness even in the face of scarcity. In many other biblical moments, we see this pattern repeated. David, in the midst of battles, sang and gave thanks. Paul and Silas, imprisoned and wounded, sang praises. Neither of them waited for the situation to improve to show gratitude. On the contrary, it was precisely this gesture that preceded the breakthrough, the transformation, the impact. There's something powerful about transforming gratitude into worship. It changes the spiritual climate around us. It shifts our focus from circumstances to those above them. When we do this, we stop being hostages to what's happening and become protagonists of our faith journey. This is much more than an emotional issue. It's a stance that reveals trust, maturity, and intimacy with the heart of God. This hidden truth, often overlooked by those who seek prosperity only as an external achievement, is actually one of the deepest foundations of walking with purpose. Prospering, from a biblical perspective, begins not with what we have, but with the awareness of what we have already received. And when this awareness overflows with gratitude, it attracts favor, aligns decisions, and strengthens the soul to continue even when the situation dictates otherwise. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because this is where the role of gratitude as an active force that not only accesses promises, but transforms environments, relationships, and even our own thoughts about what it means to thrive begins to become clear. Gratitude has a curious power. It changes the landscape without requiring the landscape to change. As we begin to see through clearer lenses, our perception shifts, and when our perception shifts, the world changes with it. It's as if what once seemed like a roadblock now reveals itself as an essential part of our journey. Problems, once seen as obstacles, now carry lessons in disguise. People, once seen as challenges, become tools for refinement. And opportunities previously unnoticed finally reveal themselves as real opportunities for advancement. Often we're so focused on what's going wrong that we fail to notice the subtle signs of what's happening behind the scenes. By choosing to be grateful, even for small things, something within us is unlocked. It's as if a curtain falls, and suddenly, we can see everything more clearly, with more purpose. This practice changes the way we react, how we judge, and even how we decide. Gratitude reshapes the way we interpret reality, and this directly impacts our behavior, our choices, and our emotional state. Imagine that difficult morning, full of commitments and setbacks. You could very well complain about the traffic, the delay, the unexpected, but what if instead, you chose to be grateful for the opportunity to live another day, to have the health to face challenges, to have a voice to express yourself? What seemed like a wasted day takes on a new color, not by magic, but by a shift in focus. Gratitude is a transformation of perspective, and transforming perspective is giving new meaning to what surrounds us. And this also applies to relationships. When we practice gratitude for the people around us, even if they're difficult to deal with, we create space for empathy, understanding, and healing. Sometimes being grateful for someone isn't about approving everything they do, but recognizing the role they play in our journey. Gratitude for the mother who supported you, even when tired, for the coworker who challenges you to grow, for the friend who gave you tough but necessary advice. These are all seeds of emotional maturity, and there's more. Gratitude brings us closer to the hidden truth behind many of the battles we face. What seems like a problem isn't always an enemy. Sometimes it's just an invitation to look at things from a different angle, with more lightness, more wisdom, and less haste. Gratitude slows the soul, and by slowing down, it allows us to see more deeply. In this rhythm, new revelations emerge about what truly matters, about what's holding us back, about what we need to release. This daily practice, however simple, reconnects us with the present and with purpose. It's as if we activate a forgotten ability to notice what is beautiful, even in chaos. Because thriving isn't just about growing in numbers, it's about growing in consciousness. And gratitude is the channel that feeds this consciousness with hope, balance, and courage. The courage to continue even when the road seems dark. The courage to be grateful, even without understanding. The courage to trust, even without seeing. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because it's at this next point that gratitude begins to shape not just our vision, but our identity, revealing who we are and who we are becoming as we practice this new way of seeing life. Comment below. This makes sense to me, just so I know this exchange is truly inspiring you. What if your answer is already on its way, but you haven't noticed it yet because you're too busy looking at what's missing? This question, though simple, carries a transformative weight. It's as if it pulls us out of autopilot, that state of mind in which we live waiting for miracles while ignoring the silent signs that they've already begun to happen. Sometimes divine providence moves so discreetly that we only notice it later, when we look back and realize that the journey was being adjusted step by step. It is at this point that gratitude ceases to be just a beautiful spiritual practice and becomes a lens of revelation. By giving thanks, even before receiving, we are saying with our hearts, I trust. Trusting is not blindly agreeing with everything that happens, but rather recognizing that there is a purpose even when it is not evident. And this completely changes how we react to life's phases. God's silence does not mean absence. It is often just the interval where our faith grows. And giving thanks in this interval is an act of spiritual courage. How many times have we found ourselves stagnant, not because God isn't acting, but because our attitude is hindering the process? Ingratitude closes doors we don't even know are open. It places a dark filter over the light that tries to break through our doubts. On the contrary, gratitude clears the path, softens the soul, and opens space to perceive divine action in the details. It's as if it reprograms our inner self to capture heaven's signs amidst the confusion of the earth. This hidden truth is what many still don't understand. Blessings are not only what we receive, but also what we can recognize. And there's a difference between being blessed and living as someone who knows they are blessed. Gratitude is precisely this bridge between the invisible and the visible. It positions us spiritually to receive with awareness, maturity, and understanding. It's the key that prepares the heart even before our hands are full. And this has a direct impact on our decisions, because those who live waiting only for big changes tend to ignore the small signs. But those who are grateful learn to appreciate every micro response that emerges, every door that opens a crack, every gesture of care disguised as routine. Sometimes God's answer is camouflaged in something we consider irrelevant, and when we cultivate gratitude, we train our eyes to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. That's why this thought-provoking trigger is so necessary. If your answer is already on its way, what are you doing to receive it? Are you cultivating inner space to perceive it? Are you opening your eyes to the hidden depths of faith? Or are you getting lost in the rush to have everything your way, in your own time? Gratitude is the antidote to this unbridled urgency. It reminds us that thriving in the biblical sense begins with recognizing, trusting, and giving thanks, even without visible guarantees. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is at this moment that the practice of gratitude begins to reveal not only answers, but also unexpected paths, restored connections and directions that would never be accessed by those who live stuck only in what is missing. Right there, I'm on this journey too. Just so I know this conversation is awakening something inside you. Gratitude begins to become real when it's put into action. And as intangible as it may seem, there's a practical and accessible way to cultivate this attitude every day. Keeping a spiritual gratitude journal. It's not a heavy or complicated task, but a light, simple, and transformative approach that gradually shapes your mindset and awakens a new way of seeing life. When you write, you materialize thoughts that would otherwise get lost in the frenetic pace of everyday life. Imagine setting aside just 5 minutes of your time, whether in the morning or before bed, to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They can be big things, like an unexpected achievement or details that often go unnoticed, like the peace you felt during prayer, the kindness of someone close to you, or even a verse that deeply touched your heart. These records become seeds planted in your own consciousness, and as you write, something begins to align within you. Your soul slows down, your spirit strengthens, and your perspective begins to shift. And when this habit is combined with the Word, the impact multiplies. By choosing a verse each day that resonates with your heart, especially those that speak of gratitude, peace, trust, or hope, you not only nourish your mind, but also your spirit. It's as if the biblical text serves as a compass to guide your thoughts and emotions, creating a spiritual atmosphere that protects and propels you. A powerful example would be to begin with Philippians 4:6, and from there, reflect daily on what this instruction awakens in you. This exercise reveals emotional undercurrents that were often blocked. As you observe your records throughout the day, you notice patterns, moments when you seem to have nothing to be grateful for, but found something, days when gratitude came easily, other times when it required effort and faith. All of this builds a narrative of transformation. You come to know yourself better, understand your own reactions, and most importantly, develop a deeper confidence that you are not alone on this journey. The hidden truth is that this simple habit creates an invisible but powerful impact. It strengthens your faith muscle, sharpens your spiritual sensitivity, and prepares you to see answers that may already be manifesting. It's not about running away from problems. It's about equipping yourself emotionally and spiritually to face them with ease and wisdom. The journal becomes a mirror of the soul, revealing not only who you are, but who you are becoming. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is at this point that gratitude, beyond being a habit, becomes an identity, a spiritual mark that begins to influence everything, from your reactions to pain to how you view God's promises. Comment below, I'm on this journey too, just so I know this exercise is making sense to you. Biblical prosperity goes far beyond the common idea of material wealth. It involves fulfillment, alignment with divine purpose, and a life marked by peace, wisdom, and fulfillment. And gratitude is one of the pillars that sustain this experience. If we look at the trajectories of biblical characters like David, Solomon, and Paul, it's clear that they all cultivated gratitude as part of their journey, and this directly influenced how they prospered amid the adversities, decisions, and challenges of each era. David, for example, was known for his emotional and spiritual intensity. Even when persecuted, facing wars and internal conflicts, he wrote psalms filled with gratitude. In many instances, his prosperity came not from external victories, but from the intimacy with God he nurtured through praise and recognition. This mindset shaped his decisions and strengthened his faith. It was a way of saying, even in the valley, I know who guides me. This spiritual posture had a real impact on his leadership, the way he faced battles, and the way he honored the divine presence in his life. Solomon also offers an interesting perspective. Upon receiving wisdom as an answer to his prayer, his first action was to express gratitude. His prosperity was built on this foundation, recognizing that everything comes from above. Even as a king surrounded by riches, his understanding of prosperity was linked to the wisdom to govern and the discernment to make decisions aligned with purpose. Solomon knew that gratitude and humility are sisters, and that without them, power becomes empty. Paul, in turn, brings an even deeper dimension to prosperity. He wrote letters filled with hope and gratitude while imprisoned, without physical freedom but in complete spiritual freedom. For him, prosperity was being able to fulfill one's calling, regardless of external circumstances. In Philippians, we see this pattern. Even in the midst of scarcity, he said he was satisfied because everything he did was anchored in something greater. And this fullness came not from material things, but from the conviction that his life was part of an eternal plan. These examples aren't in the Bible by chance. They show us the behind the scenes of true faith. Prosperity, in the biblical context, is living with purpose, having peace in your heart even when the world around you is in crisis. And gratitude is the guiding thread of this mindset. Because when you recognize what you already have, what you've experienced, and what God has already done, you position your life to receive even more. It's as if gratitude were fertile soil, where the fruits of prosperity can grow with consistency and meaning. The hidden truth few explore is that living with gratitude opens the door to deeper revelations, because when you choose to be grateful, You slow down the desire for control and make room for the natural flow of providence. This isn't passivity, it's active trust. It's saying, I know I'm being guided, even if I don't have all the answers right now. And this conviction brings lightness, direction, and strength to continue day after day. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because it is in this next step that we will explore how gratitude creates a spiritual atmosphere capable of releasing inner peace and external blessings, revealing paths that you may not yet have noticed, but which are already ready to be accessed. Comment below. This makes sense to me, just so I know this conversation is connecting with you on a deeper level. Philippians 4:6 holds a valuable key for those seeking to unlock not only external blessings, but also an inner peace that sustains, protects, and transforms. Do not be anxious about anything. It begins with a profound invitation to liberation. But the verse doesn't stop there. It proposes an alternative that goes far beyond human logic, praying with thanksgiving. That is, presenting everything to God, not just in the form of supplication, but with gratitude. And this combination is not symbolic, it is practical. It is in this movement that a true change of atmosphere occurs within and without us. Imagine experiencing a moment when everything seems out of place. Your heart is racing, circumstances are pressing, and your thoughts keep building fearful scenarios. Anxiety wants to take over, but then you choose to stop, breathe, and present your requests to God with gratitude. This seemingly simple choice has a profound impact. Gratitude in this moment is a sign of active faith. It's saying, I believe there is a way out, even if I don't see it yet. And this faith calms, organizes, and aligns. It's as if a new spiritual environment is activated within you, and peace begins to occupy the space previously dominated by restlessness. This peace mentioned in the verse is not circumstantial. It doesn't depend on immediate results, nor on the absence of problems. Rather, it guards the mind and heart while the answer is still being constructed. This expression, will guard, conjures up the image of protection, of spiritual shielding. When we pray with gratitude, we place our inner self under divine care, and this peace is so profound that Paul states it surpasses all understanding. In other words, it is not rational, it is spiritual. It is not programmable, it is experienced. It doesn't need to be understood, only received. That's why this verse has such transformative power. It doesn't promise an instant resolution, but offers a path to navigate the process with balance. And when we experience this kind of thing, something changes in the way we interpret situations. We stop seeking only quick answers and begin to appreciate God's subtle movement behind the scenes. Gratitude in this context is like a trail of light in the midst of darkness. It guides, it illuminates, it reveals. And the most beautiful part is that this peace unlocks external blessings as well. Not because it works like a magic formula, but because it changes our mindset and positions us with greater wisdom. Those who live with a peaceful heart tend to make better decisions, relate with more empathy, and see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. Prosperity begins with peace, because it is from peace that attitudes aligned with purpose are born. This is the hidden truth we often ignore. The path to a fulfilling life begins within, and Philippians 4:6 is an emotional and spiritual roadmap for this. It's not about waiting for everything to work out and then giving thanks. It's about praying with confidence, giving thanks with intention, and living with ease, even when circumstances still seem unfavorable. The peace that guards the mind and heart is both a promise and a process, and gratitude is the guiding thread of this process. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the next revelation leads us to understand how gratitude, when lived consistently, shapes the way we relate to promises, to time, and to everything that is yet to come. Comment below, this makes sense to me, just so I know this conversation is generating something real inside you. And when everything we've talked about so far starts to move beyond theory and becomes a reality, in everyday life, that's when true transformation happens. Gratitude stops being a pretty concept and becomes a concrete part of your identity. And do you know how this starts? With a simple act of putting it into practice. Nothing grand, nothing complex, just the sincere exercise of stopping for a moment and recognizing something you're grateful for today. That alone is enough to change the atmosphere around you. The impact this gesture can have is impressive. When you verbalize or write, something that sparks gratitude. You're giving your mind a direct command. Focus on what's already real, what's already present, and from that moment on, everything changes. The way you react to conflicts, the way you interpret delays, the decisions you make, everything becomes filtered through this more conscious, more mature perspective, more aligned with what truly builds peace and purpose. And if this practice is repeated daily, even for just a few minutes, it will become an emotional path. You walk with open eyes, a light heart, and a clear mind. This is because gratitude is a shaping force. It adjusts perceptions, aligns intentions, and restores clarity when everything seems confusing. And the more you exercise this force, the more it reveals hidden parts of your own journey. What was once routine becomes a revelation. What once seemed repetitive becomes preparation for something greater. The truth is, there's no ideal time to start. There's only willingness. And if you've made it this far in this conversation, you're probably already feeling that inner calling to take a step. A simple step, but full of meaning. How about starting now? Choose a reason, an experience, a person, or even a verse that has touched your heart in the last few days, and simply give thanks. Intimately, honestly, directly. No formalities, no rehearsal, just gratitude. This is the invitation that transforms, because it's not about talking pretty, it's about living with greater presence. And when we live with presence, everything gains color, rhythm, and meaning. And if you happen to want to deepen this process, perhaps it's time to learn more tools that help you maintain this habit. A biblical gratitude guide, for example, can be a good ally. Something you can consult whenever you need to reconnect with your source, with truth, with the spiritual balance that is already available. Gratitude isn't a destination. It's a journey. It's a lifestyle. And you can start now, not tomorrow, not when everything gets better, but right now. Because perhaps, right now, God is giving you the chance to activate something new within you, something that changes the way you see yourself, how you position yourself, and how you respond to difficult days with lightness and faith. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because when this practice takes root, it begins to influence other areas of life, revealing a new way to cultivate prosperity with purpose, vision, and spiritual courage. Comment below, I'm on this journey too, just so I know this truth is finding space in your heart.